Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me again. In this video, we're going to go over the creation of a .NET 5 ASP.NET Web API. I'm actually following along a tutorial here, and I just wanted to, like I say, go through the setup and creation of this. So hopefully you can follow along. I've learned a little bit in the process of doing this, and yeah, wanted to share that with you. So hopefully you followed along in my previous videos as well for installation of .NET 5, as well as configuring Visual Studio Code to run a .NET 5. If you've done anything with .NET Core, it's all very similar. So for the first command here, we're going to create our new web API. So the command is .NET new web API O, and then we're going to call it to do API. And you'll see here this command through the .NET CLI is going to scaffold out our application. So if all goes well, it should only take just a couple of seconds to create that for you. Now, just if you want to confirm that we're running .NET 5, you can type in .NET version, and you'll see there it's indeed .NET 5. Alright, so we're going to change directories, and we're going to go into our to-do API, and from here we're going to install our packages. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to add our package Microsoft.Entity Framework core.SQL Server. You'll see that took just a few seconds. And then the next one we're going to install is Microsoft.Entity Framework core.InMemory. You'll see that only took a few seconds. I'm going to clear out my console here. Alright, now I do have .NET Code installed on here, or VS Code. This is actually running a VM on Windows Hyper-V. So the developer environment does come with an installation of VS Code for you as well. Alright, so here you can see we've got our project open. And I'm going to go over each of these classes. So the first one we've got here is our controller, and I'll cover this in a little bit more detail. But you can see here we've got the annotation API controller, and basically all this one is doing is it allows you to perform a GET request, and it's going to return one of these weather forecast models back to you, and it's actually going to do this kind of in a random way. So it's interesting, but it gives you a place to start with when you're creating your API. And then here you can take a look. We've got our development app settings, development JSON, as well as our app settings JSON. And here in the program folder, you'll see that we're actually creating the host builder, and from there we're starting up the API with some dependency injection here. And in the startup class is where all the configuration for our DI containers, dependency injection containers, as well as any other middleware. You'll notice here, and actually their documentation doesn't call it out, but they've got Swagger in here for one of the services, and Swagger's really nice, and I'll show you why in a follow-up video. They recommend using Postman, and I have nothing against Postman, and there's probably some use cases where that's actually going to be a little bit better for you, but for this I think we're going to be able to get away with using Swagger for just about everything. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell the application and the overview, and I'll dig into these in more detail in follow-up. So let's open up our terminal. So I hit the Control tilde button, and then so we can do .NET build. And here we're going to be building everything again. I believe when we ran those previous commands that everything was built and then restored. And then if we actually hit Control F5, it's going to ask us which environment we want to run, and it'll create our the task.json and then the launch.json file. So we can hit Control F5 again, and it's actually going to run our project. Great. And you'll see here we have our API up and running, and actually every time that if you refresh the browser here, you'll notice that that weather model is changing. Oh, I didn't actually point out the weather model class, but here's the weather forecast. So that's, I say this is pretty cool. I tend to usually, I'll create a new folder, and I'll call it models, and I'll place all of my models within, delete that. I tend to actually create a new folder here, we'll call it models, and then anytime I create a new model, I'll place it in there. It just helps keeps things a little bit cleaner, but like I say, they scaffold all this out for you. Now, if we take this route, and instead of looking at our route here for the weather forecast, instead we go to Swagger. You'll see here that this is basically it's a way that self-documenting API, which is really handy. So you can see here the only route we've got currently is this GET request, and that's actually, if we look in our controller, you can see here, so it's this weather forecast. It's going to return an IEnumerable on the GET, and you'll see that there. So there's no parameters, but if you did have parameters, you could add your parameters, response types, as well as here's an example. Now, if you wanted to dig into the schema, I find this very handy, especially if it's an API you haven't worked much with before, or you're trying to remember where some of your models are. You can always take a look at the schema there. So if you want to try it out, you can hit execute here, and you'll see it does a curl request. It shows you the URL, the code, the response, and then here's the detail. So like I say, this is very handy. You can also use Postman if you choose, but I think this is super handy. So thanks again for following along. Hopefully you got something out of that. And till the next time, thanks.